Theodore Tiger Flowers, who was the first black middleweight champion, who was from Georgia. They called him the Georgia Deacon. You had Young Pluto and Bobby Dobbs, Larry Temple, who was the discoverer of the Bolo Punch, George Godfrey. You had two of them. You had Old Chocolate. Now, George Godfrey challenged John O'Sullivan to a fight. John O'Sullivan denied the fight. And George Godfrey would lose his colored heavyweight championship belt to the Black Prince. The Black Prince was Peter Jackson. You had Black Bill. You had two of them. Both outstanding fighters. Eladio Valdez was denied an opportunity at a title shot. Midget Wargas was the champion. And the problem there, the New York SAC didn't recognize a 19-year-old. They considered a 19-year-old six-rounders. So that's what did Black Bill in. Joe Butler and Bill Jack Thompson. You had Harry Sutton and George Cole, Bob Armstrong, Sam McVeigh, Joe Jeanette and Harry Wills, Harris Martin. Now, all these guys were colored champions. Bob Tarver and Joe Butler, Kentucky Rosebud, George Gunther, Massa Kunter, Melvin Thompson, Klondike Haynes, Harry Lyles, Denver Ed Martin, George Taylor, Jack Blackburn. I mean, you had so many great fighters during that time. Eddie Booker, Charlie Burley, Holman Williams, Lloyd Marshall. I mean, you had so many great fighters during those years. And then you look at Kid Norford's and Harry Smith, the Harlem Thunderbolt, George Godfrey, Leaperville Shadow, Leo Patterson. You had Len Johnson. You know, as I look back, and all these men are on the list, by the way, Leo Patterson was the AEF lightweight champion. He was also the colored lightweight champion. He was consistent. In the time in which he came, where fights had to be thrown, where you were given no decision fights even though you won a damn fight. You had Henry Armstrong, who was robbed from becoming a middleweight champion. Now, although he would not have been the world middleweight champion in 1940 with Seferiano Garcia, but he would have had a piece of the title. And why he would not have been a world middleweight title, even if he defeated Seferiano Garcia, was because the New York SAC didn't recognize 10 rounds. Only 15-round matches. So that fight had to be moved from New York to California. And how you know the fight was fixed was because of that very reason. If you call a championship fight 10 rounds and you take 5 rounds away from a man because you claim that he fouled the man and you had to take a round away from him 5 separate times, and don't let nobody kid you. Today's rules are totally different. We take a point away from a man for low blows, or you take 2 points away from a man for low blows. Or if a man gets knocked down, he gets a point taken away from him. You can get up and knock the man down twice and get your points back. He can hit you low and get the points taken back again, and now it's even. When you take a round away from a man, he lost the entire round, no matter what he does. Back to you. So, you can't compare yesterday and today. But in the case of Henry Armstrong was jobbed. because 5 rounds were taken away from him. And that's the only way you can justify him not getting the title. There's no way in the world he lost the fight. So you'll make it even. When you take 5 away from a 10-round fight, you make it even. And the referee that time was George Blake. And they caught him outside the arena trying to catch a cab. And when they nailed him, they brought him back, he confessed. It was a fixed fight. So historically, black fighters has always been jobbed. In the case of Charlie Burley, he was avoided by many. It's unfortunate. To the point where they tried to get Ray Robinson to give Charlie Burley a shot. And Ray Robinson said, I'm ranked number 1 as a lightweight, and I'm ranked number 1 as a welterweight. You and I both know how hard it is for us to get this kind of an opportunity. You're ranked number 5, Charlie. And if you want a shot with me to take a chance for getting robbed or anything else, you have to pay me a little bit more. That's the story with Charlie Burley and Ray Robinson. Because the contract was set for Fitzy Zivic in Pittsburgh. It was a restaurant that they went to for 2-fight deals. Fitzy Zivic and a young man by the name of Ozzie Bulldog Harris. And Charlie Burley and his advisor walked into the restaurant and wanted to fight. They didn't have a contract prepared for Charlie Burley. So they were willing to fight Charlie Burley, although there was no contract available for him under those conditions. They didn't accept it. Ray Robinson moves on. Charlie Burley defeats Holman Williams in 42 for the colored middleweight championship crown. Now he's a middleweight. Charlie Burley had defeated Coco Kid in 1938 for the welterweight colored championship crown. Charlie Burley would then move up to light heavyweight. And he would defeat Jack Chase, another black murderous row. In this case, middleweight. And Jack Chase had won the California State Light Heavyweight Championship belt from Watson Jones. And Charlie Burley had defeated Jack Chase. And he would become the California State Light Heavyweight Champion. So a lot of things happened in the black community when it came to boxing. But there's so many men on this list. Joe Louis and But just wanted to give you a little bit of a background of what these men went through. And that's why we're creating this list, but we're being very, very strategic on how we selected even these men because they had to fit a criteria. And it seems like most of the problems that a lot of the fighters are having is consistency. But when you look at the fighters coming from the 1800s to the 1950s, 1940s, 1950s, they were more consistent. And then when you get to the 70s with the George Foremans and Joe Frazier's, you had fighters such as Keen Simmons and Amos Big Train Lincoln. You had Bob Baker, Tommy Hurricane Jackson, Floyd Patterson, Sonny Liston, Muhammad Ali, Doug Jones, Sonny Banks, Alonzo Johnson. Of course, the Archie Moores of the world and Harold Johnsons of the world. We have to find room for these guys. So when we get to modern time, we've only selected about 4 guys that's fighting today because they're not consistent. not in the same conversation of the men that I just mentioned. But we wanted to give opportunities to all fighters. When you get to the 80s, Leonard and Hearns and Hagler, Mike McCallum, 90s, James Toney, Roy Jones, Buddy McGirt, Simon Brown. No problem there. These men were consistent. Donald Curry and Aaron the Hawk Pryor. All outstanding fighters. So Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. This is a part 2 to the first video that I had done with Joe Gans. So thanks for watching, and we'll continue the discussion. 100 years of the greatest 150 black fighters of all times.